we are having a great time here. It's my first time in Romania, first time in the city, and yeah, as you might have guessed already, it's my first time at this conference as well.
Pasha, I have an idea, because we're so little people in the room. Let's make them give you an applause, which is like really loud, so that we lift the spirits after lunch. I think this will help. So guys, clap as fast as you can.
Oh, now it got awkward, really.
It's different, right?
Yeah, my first time at Sylvania, and so far I'm really impressed with the hospitality of Romanian people, so thanks for having me here. And I won't lie, it's pretty enjoyable to kind of stay at this stage and think about the projects that I will be talking about. But back when we started, it was, it was not that nice. It didn't feel that nice. And when it all started, it was the first time in my life when I have actually felt that I have completely lost control over my life. And I remember an exact day when I started thinking that, my job, my kind of day-to-day doesn't really make any difference. It was February 24th when Russia started the war against Ukraine. I woke up in my tiny hotel room in Brussels. This room was super tiny. And I started doom scrolling, started following the news, started to try figuring out what's going on with my family, with my friends. And never in my life I felt like, there's nothing I can do about that. But my talk today is not about the war. My talk today is not about, is not to encourage you to donate to Ukrainian army or whatsoever. It's not about that. My talk today is about how we people in tech are uniquely positioned and privileged to drive a positive change. I've learned it myself, and it might sound a bit tricky. However, bear with me, I'll try to teach you how, and we'll try to walk you through my way of knowing nothing about charities like 3 months ago and actually becoming a part of a founding team of one of the most recognizable charities in Ukraine right now. But first things first, again, it's me. I'm a senior PM at Wise. Wise.com is on the mission of moving and managing money across borders. So if you have ever sent money from, let's say, Romania to the UK, we are a bank. You might have experienced how much fees they charge. And what Wise does is actually, we are trying to eliminate these fees. We are trying to make these transfers more convenient, frictionless, and eventually free. And prior to that, I've been doing all the different product work. I've been leading growth for a marketplace called Pavlo.com. I have a failed startup. I failed super miserably. And I've built a very successful conference and business in Ukraine as well. So I kind of relate to what the folks at Tech Sylvania team do. And never in my life I thought that I will be anyhow involved into anything related to charities until the February 24th. Truth to be told, I'm a very social PM. When the war started with my industry peers, we started to volunteer right away. I didn't really know what would be the best way for me to drive any impact. So what I started doing is that I was reaching out to different military units, and I was just trying to figure out what are their needs. And personally, what I've started doing is that I started delivering computers from one place to another. So I found a few companies in Ukraine who were willing to donate their machines, and they were okay with us just getting them delivered. And then I had a couple of folks from the same group who are PMs as well, and what they've started doing is that they were looking for some necessities like armor. How would we start buying armor in Poland? How would we start buying drones in any other European country? How would we start deliver communication systems from South Africa? Those were the questions we were started asking ourselves, and we were solving them in a very random, very weird way because we had zero experience in delivering this stuff to Ukraine. And even though everyone was kind of helping in a certain way, and we achieved some results, but it still felt that some tangible result is lacking. It's like when you do a lot of work, but you cannot actually touch and feel what the results are. And at some point, we realized that maybe within this little group of other product managers, we need to figure out how would we join our forces and start to collaborate. And that's how we created Cola. By the way, not sure if you have this word in Romanian, but in Ukrainian, kola means a circle, which is kind of a symbolic thing. And Kola is a foundation that helps Ukrainian army to achieve technological supremacy. And what is funny about this charity is that it has been made by people who have nothing to do with charities before. And for me, it sounds like a very slick positioning. And when you read it now, when I read it now, it sounds like, oh, someone should have created this. And I'm quite proud that we did that. But some of you might wonder, how did we even end up thinking about something like that? Because again, we had nothing to do with military, we had nothing to do with charities, we had nothing to do with non-profit. Let me walk you through our thought process. So we knew that we wanted to drive impact. That was our kind of, well, I would call it a North Star, but North Star is usually measurable when impact is not always measurable. We wanted to drive some impact, and we wanted to help Ukrainian military. And what we decided to try applying is what they call in corporate universe a product mindset. And a product mindset is a very simple thought process. I would not spend too much time talking about what product mindset is. However, in simple words, this process consists of 4 steps. The first step is that as a PM, when you try to build a feature or when you try to build a piece of software, firstly, the question you need to answer is what is the problem that you're trying to solve? And it should be done before investing into your first line of code. It sounds super obvious for some of them, but trust me, I work with some startups, and I saw a lot of founders, I think you've seen them yourself as well, when they come, give you their wonderful code, but they have no freaking idea how this code will be used. So product mindset has been used to eliminate this stage. Second part is defining the solution. So if you know what the problem is, try to figure out what the solution should be. Very straightforward. Very obvious, unless you're in the situation where you haven't done it and you have already spent a shit ton of time in order to code something. Third thing is that try to execute your solution. Try to find the most cheap way to test it. And that's where these 3 magic letters come in place. MVP, right? We've all heard about it. And MVP, for those of you who don't know, MVP stands for minimum viable product, and basically it's the most cheap and the most convenient way for you to test the solution of the problems that you discovered. And the last but not the least, and always people forget about that, figure out what would be the way for you to define the outcome of the MVP that you delivered. And it makes sense when you think about these 4 steps from the perspective of launching a new venture or launching a new product or building a new feature, but why is it important when it comes to charities? Well, I think that launching a new charity is pretty much like launching a product in the red ocean. And I think you've heard a lot about red ocean concept, blue ocean concept, etc. But just to underline how I think about the red ocean conception, it is basically the state of the market when you know the demand exists. You wouldn't argue with the fact that people are willing to donate, right? There are people out there who have money to spend and they feel like they want to contribute. And yeah, I mean, we know there are people who have a demand for it. And hence, the competition exists as well. So if there are money on the market, then someone have already built something to address this demand. And strategically, there are 2 ways on how to compete within red ocean kind of market. The first is try to figure out how to drop prices or to kind of build a cheaper product, but what does it mean when it comes to charities, right? Or try to figure out how to differentiate. And for us, it was exactly the step that we've taken. The first learning for us was like, okay, we know there are a ton of charities that do something. How would we differentiate ourselves somehow to, well, to get these resources that would allow us to bring impact? And considering it was our first charity to launch, we've started doing what we think we knew the best. As PMs, we started with analyzing the market, and we started with analyzing the users. And if we're talking about the market, what we actually discovered, it was super interesting to me when we started, is that when it comes to this universal charity, like universal charity in vacuum, it would be a charity with a very generic product. Even think about the Red Cross as kind of one of the biggest charities on earth. But we would always struggle to answer what they actually do, like what are the projects they support. And this one applies to pretty much all the charities in the universe. It's like usually they have a very generic product with a very generic positioning and a very strong brand. The third problem that we discovered is that pretty much all the charities struggle with the feedback cycle. So what happens? You as a person, you're like, oh, I'm keen to donate, I'm keen to donate to relieve whatever. I don't know, like let's take Ukraine as an example. And then they would take your money, and they're like, oh, we take your money, but you will never know how we use them. Oh, of course you can go and read their reports at some point, and maybe you will figure out how they use it. But on the personal level, it's like you would struggle to understand how they used your donation. And the one thing that was kind of interesting, and it's mostly in regards to Ukrainian situation, is that we figured out that there's this thing which is called uneven resources distribution between charities. So basically, just to give you some context, what we have in Ukraine right now is that there are two types of charities. One type would support military efforts, and another type would support humanitarian efforts. And the problem with that is, well, humanitarian efforts are getting way more resources. Charities who support humanitarian efforts get way more resources because companies are afraid to donate to military. Some individuals are afraid to donate to military, and mostly military-related charities don't do the best job attracting funds. So we felt like there is something for us. And we felt like there is an opportunity, and we felt like if we find out a clear positioning, we could find a sweet spot for our new, well, I would not call it a venture, but okay, let's call it a foundation. Now we had to figure out who our donors should be and how would we make them donating. And quick context, all my co-founders were either PMs or somehow involved into tech community. And in this group, we had people who worked for Bolt. I'm sure you know them. I think they're in Romania as well. We had people who worked for Vix. I myself worked at Twice, just as I mentioned previously. And we thought of is that, hey, why don't we just start focusing on tech professionals as the community that is more likely to start working with us because they know us, there is some trust already. And we know, from our own insight, is that we felt quite guilty that even during the war, even though we were not holding rifles in our heads, we were still making good money because we were not that, external situation dependent. And we were afraid to volunteer, and we were like, maybe we can just generate more impact by doing what we do. And the last but not the least here, since we've chosen this segment of people who are in tech, we decided what people in tech would be keen to donate to. And all of us were interested in technology when we started. And we were interested in what values these technologies in general could bring to society. But since our society, was under attack, we were like, okay, we also started looking into how we could leverage technology into to help Ukrainian military efforts, defense efforts. So that's how we came up to the following position. We're like, okay, let's support the military, let's focus on small and medium batches, and let's try to make sure that whatever we raise, whatever we receive from our donors, is being spent in a very fast and efficient manner, and these donors have visibility on how their resources, how their donations get spent. How we are going to do that? Focus technological supremacy. We would focus on a very few categories. We are not going to work with anything else. We are going to deliver drones, communication system, thermal imagers, only this stuff that we believe was needed. We thought we could build deep expertise in. And it was kind of geeky enough to make tech community excited about that. Just as I said, another problem we tried to tackle was optimizing for speed and ROI. And the last but not the least, we were like, okay, we will not support everyone in the universe. We would support only people in the front lines, and that would be our focus. That's how we created Cola. And at this point, we got super excited. It's like you cannot imagine how excited I personally was. I was like, oh, we know who our customers should be. Well, let's call donors customers. We knew what the insights we should build based upon. We knew kind of everything, but we've lost one little thing, and it could have stopped here, really. We were like, oh, okay, but how would we actually run charity, How would we actually arrange all the paperwork? We have neither an entity nor an experience of running one. We don't have a bank account, And yeah, we know nothing about this. Like, how would you even start accepting payments? But luckily, we had some corporate background in this group, which came super handy. And someone offered a very ridiculous idea, which it will sound ridiculous now, but back then it sounded like, what the fuck, really? So someone came up and said, hey, should we acquire a charity? Should we go and find someone with a license, with all the paperwork done, with the bank accounts that we could use in order to speed up the process? And, you know, worst come to worst, we started to look for a charity to acquire. And back then, we didn't even know if it's possible to acquire a charity. What happened next is luckily we managed to find an entity that hasn't been used for a while, and we just kind of merged with this entity technically and started using that. But what I really wanted to underline here is that even if you don't have a legal setup, if you don't have a bank account and you know nothing about this, just go and find people who know about stuff. Go and find people who have built this charity at some point and try to get their paperwork and bank setup and just merge with them. Okay, so at this point, we knew what we are going to build. We had all the legal setup, we had our banking setup, and it was just the right time to raise some big bucks and start spending them on the equipment we wanted to spend on. And I think that only at this stage, we kind of realized that, oh, actually, we need to have a proper fundraising strategy because we had no clue how would you fundraise money. No one from this kind of teams that started building that had experience with fundraising. And I felt like that, really. Like, oh, maybe I should just, go to Google and just ask how to raise money for charities, because that's what people do when they don't know an answer. And even though, personally, I have never Googled that, I felt exactly like that. And here we came back to what we call the product mindset. We're like, okay, we know there are charities out there. We know it's a red ocean. We know there's a huge competition and other brands are competing for the same. I would not call it a competition, really, because in the end of the day, everyone was helping the same cause. But still, to make impact, you have to get resources to get this impact. And we wanted to approach kind of this fundraising thing a bit differently. So instead of looking into how would we make our fundraising message more emotional so people would be more keen to donate, we were like, how would we solve their problems with the products that we could build for this charity so they would be keen to donate? And that is something that I think differentiates us, because we approach it in a very, I would say, business way. Instead of asking them blindly with, hey, there are people suffering, please donate. We're like, okay, maybe we could just try to give something to them that they would be keen to have, so they will, to increase their willingness to donate. So we started looking for problem. Our user persona was a citizen of Ukraine who works in tech. That was our user persona we started to optimize for. I'm not sure if you see anything on the screen. Yeah, you do. And basically, we know that there is a problem that as a citizen, as Ukrainian citizens, they were ready to contribute, but they really wanted their contribution to be celebrated. They really wanted to feel like they're a part of resistance, even though they were not a part of it. They were not in the front lines. They were not fighting with rifles against occupants. They were just people who were sitting in front of their computer and making money. And we were like, okay, what could we deliver to them? And we decided to introduce this subscription-based community that you could get into by paying a flat subscription fee, which at the point when we launched it was $200 a month. And in exchange of this regular recurring donation, what we have done is that we have just offered them a place, like the unique page on the website, that would feature them as a representative of a community, and would feature a message from this person who is donating on the regular basis to Ukrainian military. And this thing just exploded. So in a matter of a week, we have received like more than 1.5K people who subscribed. So can you imagine, like with zero marketing budget, we've got 1.5K users who agreed to pay us $200 a month. And our monthly churn so far, we launched like 3 months ago, I think, is around 6%, which means that 6% of our customer base would drop off every month, which sounds a bit a lot, but if you are familiar with subscription business, you would know that it's actually very normal to have a churn of that size. And what is more important about this feature is that it actually gives our foundation a very predictable cash flow. One of the problems charities have is that they only raise when something happens. You know, if there's a problem, if there's an earthquake, if there's, I don't know, like a major fire somewhere in the Amazon forest, they would only fundraise there. And with subscription like that, we actually mitigate that problem. We gave people what they wanted. They wanted to be noticed, and we gave them this tool to be noticed in the exchange of a flat monthly fee. But we learned that there's a group of contributors that was very keen to donate even larger amount if they felt like their contribution is really noticed and celebrated. So what we decided to do then, we decided, oh, what if we try to partner with some drone manufacturers and in an exchange of a huge donation, we would allow our donors to brand these drones or put their logos on this drone. And it sounds ridiculous now, but actually we've got a few companies who started branding drones. So basically, yeah, it's for real. We kind of found a few companies in Ukraine who would produce drones for military. We came to them and we were like, okay, would you be comfortable with branding your, I would not even know how to call that, like machines with our logo if we just give you this money back as a donation. And they were very keen to do that. So we discovered that. We sold out everything that could have been branded. And what happened next, we went even more ridiculous. We were like, okay, we would find military units who would agree to put some branding and some elements on their military equipment in the exchange of some considerable donation. And you know what? We launched this product. It's live now. You can find it at colorua.com/color. And actually, as a company or as an individual, you could go there, you can fill a form, and there will be someone who reach out to you, make this design for you, and we will get it printed. We haven't branded a lot of machines yet because we have just launched this feature, but the message I'm trying to deliver here is that you can actually approach fundraising differently. And instead of asking people to give you something, think about what you as a charity, as an organization, can give them, what are the problems you can solve for them. And we went even further. What we discovered afterwards is that because the war was over there, tech employees were so stressed and distracted. It's like, you know, it doesn't really matter what your backlog is if your country is under attack, if your relatives are being threatened. And what happened is that people started losing this link between I'm doing this job and I'm paying taxes, and taxes are being used to support the army. They were like, I'm doing this job, but this job makes no sense. And I'm doing this job and my results don't really, it's impossible to link my results to what helps the country to win at this stage. So what we did is that we started reaching out to companies with a simple offer. We were like, hey guys, why don't you link your financial results to your monthly contribution? Like, why don't you explain to your employees that the more you as a company earn, the more you could donate to the Ukrainian army. The more profits you make, the more drones you could buy. And we have signed deals with 15 companies so far, bigger and smaller, different size. And some of them are actually donating us their entire profit. And it's absolutely insane. It's like, we launched it 2 months ago, and we have already raised $600K USD only from this revenue stream. So what I'm trying to deliver as a message here is that try to think what would be the value you could bring to the businesses as well. Because even though retail transactions are nice, retail investors or donors are nice, but by nature, businesses would have more money. And we found this angle, maybe in the areas where you won't deliver impact, you would find something else. Just to recap, all the faces of people who decided to become a part of this charity, and every time I see this picture, I feel some shivers on my hands because it's so nice to see so many people who were so kind of supportive towards our mission. Just to recap, 1,555 individuals and a handful of companies committed to donate. But what we found out afterwards is that even though there was a huge group of people who were keen to donate, at the same time, there were plenty of people who were ready to make huge donations, but they didn't want any trace of these donations to exist. Because, you know, the war is still on. You don't really know what would happen next. So what we introduced was a very simple solution. C word entered the room, it's crypto. And in the beginning, when we launched, we introduced only the basic wallets. We started accepting USDT as a stable coin, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. And in the very beginning, crypto represented 20% of all donations that we received. Now I think this amount shrink to 10%, but still, what crypto really gives us is that it allows us to spend quickly. Just to give you an example, because of the war in Ukraine, the demand for some goods grew like exponentially. So for instance, if you would try to buy a Motorola radio system now, it will be completely impossible. It's like there is a queue for 6 months. So if you find a supplier that somehow has this stock of Motorola, you would pay twice the price just to get it delivered. Just to give you a sense, recently we were delivering a box of Motorola radio systems from South Africa. It was absolutely insane. So what crypto allows us to do in this case is that when you find a supplier and they are ready to sell you, but the paperwork would take them some time, you would just say, hey, let me send you these stable coins to your USDT account and use it as my deposit. And while the paperwork is still being in the making, you can keep this amount so you know exactly that I'm paying for this. And once the paperwork is signed and the actual payment has been made, you just send these coins back. And that's pretty much it. So what I'm trying to deliver here is that I was the biggest crypto hater prior to this war. I have never seen any commercial value in using that. But I have actually discovered that it's a very convenient mean of payment when it comes to fast payments that has to be done like now. Another problem that we discovered was information overload. So our audience, and again, we were targeting tech, and we are targeting tech professionals, was constantly asked to make donations. And we were like, let's just try to figure out if there are other audiences out there except for tech professionals or other channels where we could reach this tech professional set. And what we decided to try is to partner with some esports events. And we partnered with something called Ukrainian StarCraft Championship. I'm not sure how many of you guys have played StarCraft 2. I'm a big fan personally. But I think it was one of the first cases on my mind when esports community actually contributed to social efforts. So we partnered with the champion. We raised 30K USD in 2 days. We received like 100K unique views of this stream, and it was absolutely insane. I mean, it was kind of the first case of involving this type of the community into something social related. Yeah, actually, I remember watching this. I was so excited watching this championship. I'm not sure if you guys have ever watched any esports like professional tournaments, but it's something that should be definitely added into your to-do list if you haven't yet. All right. One of the last problems that we discovered is that as a contributor, I want to feel that my donation made the difference, and it should be spent quickly and efficiently. And of course, I know reports are out there, but who the heck has time to read them, right? Who the heck has time to read my reports? How much time do you have? No. Oh, is it over? Oh, okay. It took more time than I expected. Anyways, we introduced what we call the closed community for our donors and contributors, and we started doing some live streams in order to get them excited about what we've been doing. Worked pretty well, increased trust. And I'm wrapping up now, if you allow me another minute. Yeah? So what I learned throughout this project is that even if you feel helpless in front of a massive problem, it doesn't mean that you should sit still until someone sorts it out. This dude on the photo, he is completely disabled, and he's from my hometown called Cherkasy. It's in the middle of Ukraine, a very tiny one. And every day he makes 1,000 dumplings and gets them delivered to the military units that protect the city. And he doesn't complain. He just does what he can. And of course, dumplings won't help to win the war, right? Never. But definitely acting on something feels way better than just sitting there and complaining. I'll not spend too much time, but think about, you might look at me now and think something like, oh, okay, this guy has this community in front of him. That's why it worked out. But you don't have to start from the tech community. You need to think, what are the people around you who trust you, who you would like to start working with, and who could be the first supporters of your charity or your fund or any other initiatives that would address a social cause. It's not about donating in the end of the day. It's about our products and businesses that can incentivize change. And at Wise is a very considerable business. We are fintech, we are public, we are big, our valuation is a lot of billions. And when the war started, we started thinking, how would we change our product in a way that we would drive behavior of the customers that would help to relieve the cause? Instead of blindly donating, what can we make in order to incentivize our customers to donate? So what we started doing, Wise is a fintech product. We deliver money from one place to another. And we decided to build these features that would allow our customers to donate in one click. Prior to that, donating with Wise to charity was extremely complicated, and we decided to fix it. So that's a very simple example on how your company or business could drive positive changes. Just think about how your team or the service that you are building can incentivize these behaviors that you want to be incentivized. All right, I want to leave you with something. And this room is full, well, it's already quite full. Thanks for coming, by the way. It was pretty empty when we started. This room is full of people who have networks. You guys have resources. You guys have tools. And just do me a favor now. Close your eyes for a second, okay? And you as well. I'm looking at you. Close your eyes for a second, really. And think about the cause that you are passionate about solving. It might be a social cause. It might be, just donating to your school. It might be something good that you really wanted to do but never done. And think about this till the end of the day. And when you will be leaving this room in a second, just talk to a random person about this cause and try to ask them for help. Try to check if they can help you with solving this. And the only thought I want you to stay with is that making a positive impact in the end is a choice. And it's totally on you whether you want to take it or not. Thanks for having me, and sorry it took a bit longer than it should.
No problem. That has been actually very interesting, how you approach as a tech person working on a cause like that. And by the way, I remember in the beginning when the war started, I have mostly journalists on my team, so they are very prone to the doom scrolling. And we're having our first meeting on a Monday, and everyone is so down.
Yeah.
And then I realized that it wasn't only the event, but it was also the feeling of being powerless. So the moment when we started thinking, and how we can contribute as a team, as a media, then things started changing.
Yeah.
So I think the best way,
is to act.
Fight is actually to act and to find a cause, maybe Colo or maybe something else where you can have the feeling that you're contributing. I really loved your approach, by the way.
Thanks a lot.
Very startup approach to being a foundation. I think other foundations can learn a lot from you.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Thanks for having me.
So since we're running out of time, I'm going to ask you to stick around here at the conference, because I'm sure that there will be questions. Please don't be shy. Approach Pasha after the talk. Ask your questions also to him, and we're going to continue with the next speak. So again, please give him a big applause. That was amazing.
Thanks a lot.